Top of the day, beautiful people. We are live in both places. All right. Happy Wednesday, everybody. We're moving right along in the editions of Esther. Guys, it is Wednesday, June the 16th, 2021, day 182 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets. Another 3-year consecutive day count, day 851. Remember, that's without the Sabbath days or the Sabbath feast days added into the count, because we rest on those days as YAHUAH has commanded us to. Today we're reading the editions of Esther, which is found in the Apocrypha. And we're reading chapters 7, 8, and 9. And then we'll pick up where we left off at yesterday in Fossilized customs. So let's go ahead and pull this out real quick. And we'll do the Shema. It'll be a pretty quick reading over here in Esther today, y'all. As well. Yeah, he'll probably read in like 5 minutes. Trina, hey girl, hey, that's probably Shayla, Date, rise in peace and blessings, Tiffany, Sally, boom. Alright, y'all. Let's pull up the Shema. It's interesting watching my 18-year-old transition completely to plant-based. So last night, for the last 2 weeks, he's been nothing but fruits and veggies and, smoothies and doing it different ways and stuff. And yesterday, he decided, he been binge watching YAHUAH videos for like the last 3 days. And I'm like, boy, he said, did you know? I'm like, yep. Yep. He's like, I really only been plant-based for like the last 8 years. He's like, oh, now I see why. Oh, this totally makes sense. But listen, so yesterday we still had some Beyond Meat, right? The plant-based meat products. And although it's plant-based, I don't really buy a lot of it because I can tell the difference. And when I was eating meat, I was eating meat. When I first transitioned off of it, I was okay with not even eating substitutes. But then I started hearing all these different things about them. I was like, oh, let me try one. So there are some that I like, but I don't really eat them a lot because it's still, it raises my body temperature, so to speak. But anyway, he figured that out yesterday. He had, because we had some Beyond Meat, the Italian sausage. Of course, it's plant-based or whatever. It's not the Impossible Meat. The Impossible Meat is, different from Beyond Meat. Beyond Meat is like it's not the only one, but it's like the one who really blew up in the last few years right before the Impossible Meat did, right? So he ate 2 of those last night. And of course, he put it on bread, cut up, just like you would do a normal like hot dog or something, putting onions and mustard and ketchup on it, right? So about 2 o'clock in the morning, he sent me a text. He thought I was actually woke. It took him up. Yeah, sometimes I'm just up. When you plant-based, you don't really need a lot of sleep for real, so. But he texted me like 2 in the morning, and he said, yeah, Mom, he said, I think I need to stick with like just a completely fruit-based, plant-based type diet. He said, because I could feel like the mucus. He said the Beyond Meat, he said to me, it felt like it's still mucus swarming. He said I felt so nasty a couple hours after I finished eating it. He said it's like he could feel the mucus forming in his body and his throat. He said he got nauseous when he ate it. And he was like, yeah. He said, I can't do it. He said, I got to stick with all plant-based and fruits and stuff. I'm like, see? And he's only been doing plant-based for like a little over 2 weeks now, for real. Yeah, a little over 2 weeks. And he been doing like straight fruits. Not straight fruits. He has had like a salad. But with, he done put it in cheese, croutons, and any of that stuff, completely plant-based stuff, all his toppings and everything. But he immediately felt the difference by going just strictly cleaning your body out. He literally felt the difference in his body. He said he could feel the mucus forming in his body. So he said, yeah, he can't do that anymore. He can't do none of the imitation meats or nothing. So just in case you haven't tried it, you definitely will feel the difference in your body when you go completely plant-based. And then when you put something in your body that your body is going to, the mucus forms in your body to try and protect you. It's one of those protection mechanisms to kind of, kind of surround the thing that's going wrong in your body. So it'll, what is the word I'm using? Where it like cut it off, or it's another word, y'all. Isolate. It'll form to isolate the problem so it doesn't spread in your body. He said he felt even a little bit of his energy kind of depleting. Because he'd been like up all hours of the night for like the last couple of weeks, because his body is not taking all that energy to digest the food. I said, you see what I mean? He said, nah. I said, exactly what you be talking about. Like, you be having all this energy. He said, I cannot go to sleep. So, which is why I was up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and he texted me, he thought I was asleep. Right, so, but yeah, so, just you should know. Auntie Shalom, Belinda Brown, Levine, blessings. Okay, y'all, so let's go ahead and do the Shema. But I wanted to share it with y'all just in case y'all was thinking about going plant-based, and just really be paying attention to your body as you transition. Like, if you're having issues with your body now, or some things it's not majorly an issue, but if it's things that you wish kind of, I wish I could really just get over this. I can really do without this going on in my body. Try and do it for about 30 days. You'll definitely tell the difference. And when you do it for 30 days and you go back to kind of like eating some of the stuff you were eating before, you can immediately tell the difference, and you're going to know, wait a minute, something ain't right here. Because if your body is fighting against this, your normal diet, what you was eating before you went plant-based, you're going to be able to tell immediately that something was wrong, right? So test it. And go with what makes your body feel the best and what's the best for it in the long run. Nikki, greetings. So, yeah, I just wanted to share that with you. For what Jeremiah's experienced in the last 2 weeks with his body and stuff. So, yeah, he said, yeah, he can't even do the imitation, nothing. He said he wish he had never done it. He said, because now he's nauseous. So, but yeah. Okay, Shema, y'all. It's found in Deuteronomy chapter 6, and we're going to start at verse 3. Remember, read the entire chapter for full context. I just pulled the meat of everything out so we can kind of like use it as our beginning morning prayer, even, so to speak, right? But it's just to remind us of what we should be focusing on. Oh, yeah, that's what he was saying when you read Trina comment. Trina said, I noticed lately every time I eat the plant-based substitute, I feel like something is stuck in my throat, and I gotta cut that off too. Yep, that's what he was saying. That's what he was saying when he was he said he could feel like the mucus forming in his body, like in his throat. He said it felt weird and disgusting, and he got nauseous. Yeah, so but you gotta realize, even with the plant-based meats, they're using preservatives and stuff, to give it like a longer shelf life, because they're putting it in the store, and then they'll keep it refrigerated or free or frozen, and they ain't no telling how long they really kept it in the back or whatever before they get it out. But I know they're supposed to put dates on everything, especially things that expire. But sometimes it depends on where you go. Sometimes they can be a little. They don't necessarily always follow the directions like they should. And some things, that you wouldn't do at home, they'll do at the store for the sake of still bringing in that dollar from the people who can buy it, who not paying attention. And like that manager special stuff. Anything that say manager special, stay away from it. That means it's about to expire any second now if it's not already expired, right? We learned that the hard way, right? So yeah, I'm with you. Stay away from those. And I hadn't had any in a little while, but we still kind of had it here, but it was in a freezer. But yeah. All right, here. Therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as YAHUAH, the Elohim of our fathers, has promised us, in the land that flows with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, YAHUAH, our mighty one, he is one. And you shall love YAHUAH, your Elohim, with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart. And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them upon the posts of your house and on your gates. And YAHUAH commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear YAHUAH, our mighty one, for our good always, that he might preserve us alive, as it is at this day. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before YAHUAH, our mighty one, as he has commanded us. Okay. All right. So this is Esther chapter 7. Okay. When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes, and put on sackcloth with ashes, and went out into the midst of the city, and cried with a loud and bitter cry, and came even before the king's gate. For none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Hebrews, and fasting, and weeping, and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told it to her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai. Remember that the Et is the Aleph and the Tau, or Aleph and the Tav, and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he received it not. Then called Esther for Hathach, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai, to know what it was and why it was. So Hathach went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the Hebrews to destroy them. Also he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king, to make supplication unto him, and to make request before him for her people. And Hathach came before Esther at the words of Mordecai. And Hathach came and told Esther at the words of Mordecai. Again Esther spoke unto Hathach, and gave him commandment unto Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his to put him to death, except such to whom the king shall hold out at the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. And they told to Mordecai at Esther's words. The Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with yourself that you shall escape the king's house more than all the Hebrews. For if you altogether hold your peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Hebrews from another place. But you and your father's house shall be destroyed. And who knows whether you are come into the kingdom for such a time as this? And then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer. Go and gather at all the Hebrews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maids will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. Then Mordecai thought upon all the words of YAHUAH, and made his prayer unto him, saying, O YAHUAH, YAHUAH, the King El Shaddai, for the whole world is in your power, and if you have appointed to save YAHUAH, there is no man that can gainsay you. For you have made heaven and earth, and all the wondrous things under the heaven. You are the YAHUAH of all things, and there is no man that can resist you, which are YAHUAH. You know all things, and you know, Adonai, that it was neither in contempt nor pride, nor for any desire of glory, that I did not bow down to proud Haman. For I could have been content with good will for the salvation of YAHUAH, to kiss the soles of his feet. But I did this, that I might not prefer the glory of man above the glory of YAHUAH. Neither will I worship any but you, O YAHUAH, neither will I do it in pride. And now, O YAHUAH Elohim and King, spare your people, for their eyes are upon us to bring us to naught. Yea, they desire to destroy their inheritance that has been yours from the beginning. Despise not the portion which you have delivered out of Egypt for your own self. Hear my prayer and be merciful unto your inheritance. Turn our sorrow into joy, that we may live, O YAHUAH, and praise your name, and destroy not the mouths of them that praise you, O YAHUAH. All Yasharal in like manner cried most earnestly unto YAHUAH, because their death was before their eyes. And notice how, and I know y'all said that, but I like to bring it out every time they say it. If you haven't noticed it, notice how when they pray to Yah, all of the prophets, and I'm not sure whether Mordecai was a prophet, but he was definitely in the Sanhedrin, right? But when they pray, and they make it known that we pray only to you. And YAHUAH has always showed up for them, right? It always seemed like it's the hard-headed ones that want to add stuff to his name that they have a little bit of trouble believing this. Even throughout the scriptures where YAHUAH, there was like always this separation within YAHUAH's own people. You know, where he was saying that you're doing all of these things, even mentioning the sacrifices. I did not require that. I simply require for you to be obedient. So we should begin to really pay attention to the divide between the people. Not just the divide. There were a few different divides and why they were divided. But one of the main ones is that half was doing, I wouldn't even say half. The majority was doing what was wrong, worshiping multiple gods. And there was a very small remnant, very small percentage of his people that stuck to the laws all the way through, including the prophets, right? And there was some priests that went off, but most of them, they kept to YAHUAH's commands, right? They simply did what YAHUAH required, and it was never an issue for them. And those were the ones that they were killing, that they were calling out, the ones that was keeping to Yah's commands, because they was calling them out for all the foolishness that they were doing, worshiping other gods, and they didn't like that. They didn't want to hear that, right? So that's why when you read some of the prophets and you hear YAHUAH say, you kill my prophets all day long, right? And kind of sum it up, because you don't want to do what's right. You don't want to hear them when they come to bring you the truth and tell you stop these disgusting practices, but you want to keep on doing what you're doing. And even I love with how he shows Ezekiel. He said, come here, let me show you. And YAHUAH wasn't showing Ezekiel another nation. He was showing Ezekiel his very own people. Come here, Ezekiel. Let me show you what the priests are doing behind closed doors, right? This is what they're doing. He said, outwardly they worship me, but when they get behind closed doors, look at this. You see what they're doing? They sacrificing. Look at the women. Look at their wives and stuff. They're over here weeping over Tammuz, right? The same stuff we learned about that we were still doing even today. And this time, even up until 2021, women weeping over Tammuz. They just changed the name. Depending on where you at, it's the same stuff. He said, this is disgusting. He said, and they cannot live in my land if they're going to continue doing this. And that's why we're constantly drove out the land. You cannot stay here, right? So, Just in case you didn't notice, he said, hold on. He said, Mordecai said, neither will I worship any but you, O YAHUAH. Right? I just want to bring that out. Chapter 8, Editions of Esther. Queen Esther also, being in fear of death, resorted unto YAHUAH. Even she resorted to pray only to YAHUAH, right? Queen Esther also, being in fear of death, resorted unto YAHUAH, and laid away her glorious apparel, and put on the garments of anguish and mourning, and instead of precious ointments, she covered her head with ashes and dung, and she humbled her body greatly. And all the places of her joy she filled with her torn hair. And she prayed unto YAHUAH Elohim of Yasharal, saying, O my Adonai, you only are our king. You only are our king, right? Not added anybody else. They never knew anybody else, right? Those who was keeping to YAHUAH's laws. That's what YAHUAH said, don't worship anybody that your forefathers never worshiped. And there's a lot of new Johnny-come-latelys that people are adding to YAHUAH's name. He said your forefathers. When he said your forefathers, right, he was talking about the ones who actually kept to his law, statutes, and his commands. Not the ones that was going sideways, doing what they still doing today. Demi Shalom. And she prayed unto YAHUAH Elohim of Yasharal, saying, O my Adonai, you only are our king. Help me, a desolate woman, which have no helper but you. For my danger is in my hand. From my youth up I have heard in the tribe of my family that you, O YAHUAH, took Yasharal from among all people and our fathers, from all their predecessors, for a perpetual inheritance. And you have performed whatsoever you promised them. And now we have sinned before you. Therefore have you given us into the hands of our enemies, because we worship their Elohim. O YAHUAH, you are righteous. Nevertheless, it satisfies them not that we are in bitter captivity, but they have stricken hands with their idols, that they will abolish the thing that you with your mouth have ordained, and destroy your inheritance, and stop the mouths of them that praise you, and quench the glory of your house, and for your altar, and open the mouths of the heathen to set forth praises of the idols, and to magnify a fleshly king forever. O YAHUAH, give not your scepter unto them that be nothing, and let them not laugh at our fall, but turn their device upon themselves, and make him an example that has begun this against us. Remember, O YAHUAH, make yourself known in time of our affliction, and give me boldness, O King of the nations, and YAHUAH of all power. Give me eloquent speech in my mouth before the lion. Turn his heart to hate him that fights against us, that there may be an end of him and of all that are like-minded to him. But deliver us with your hand, and help me that am desolate, and which have no other help but you. You know all things, O YAHUAH. You know that I hate the glory of the unrighteous, and arbor the bed of the uncircumcised, and of all the heathen. You know my necessity, for I arbor the sign of my high estate, which is upon my head in the days wherein I show myself, that I may arbor it as a minstrel's rag, and that I wear it not when I am privately by myself. And your handmaid has not eaten at Haman's table, that I have not greatly esteemed the king's feast, nor drunk the wine of the drink offerings. See, remember, she definitely had the same diet that Daniel had. Hezekiah Shalom, right? She said it right here. We know that it said she had a special diet, right? The king's chamberlains gave her a special diet. And right here, this proves that she was not eating from the king's table. Verse 17, I'll go back. And your handmaid has not eaten at Haman's table, and that I have not greatly esteemed the king's feast, nor drunk the wine of the drink offerings. Neither had your handmaid any joy since the day that I was brought hither to this present, but in you, O YAHUAH, Elohim of Abraham, O Elohim above all. Hear the voice of the forlorn, and deliver us out of the hands of the mischievous, and deliver me out of my fear. Last chapter for the day, y'all. Esther chapter 9. Additions to Esther chapter 9, which is found in the Apocrypha. And upon the third day, when she had ended her prayers, she laid away her mourning garments and put on her glorious apparel. And being gloriously adorned, after she had called upon YAHUAH, who is the beholder and savior of all things, she took 2 maids with her. Who is the beholder and savior of all things? She took 2 maids with her. And upon the one she leaned, as carrying herself daintily, and the other followed, bearing up her train. And she was ruddy through the perfection of her beauty, and her countenance was cheerful and very amiable, but her heart was in anguish for fear. Then having passed through all the doors, she stood before the king, who sat upon his royal throne, and was clothed with all his robes of majesty, all glittering with gold and precious stones, and he was very dreadful. Then lifting up his countenance that shone with majesty, he looked very fiercely upon her, and the queen fell down and was pale and fainted, and bowed herself upon the head of the maid that went before her. Then YAHUAH changed the spirit of the king into mildness, who in fear leaped from his throne, and took her in his arms till she came to herself again, and comforted her with loving words, and said unto her, Esther, what is the matter? I am your brother. Be of good cheer. You shall not die, though our commandment be general. Come near. And so he held up at his golden scepter, and laid it upon her neck, and embraced her, and said, Speak unto me. Then said she unto him, I saw you, my Lord, as an angel of YAHUAH, and my heart was troubled for fear of your majesty. For wonderful are you, Lord, and your countenance is full of grace. And as she was speaking, she fell down for faintness. Then the king was troubled, and all his servants comforted her. Then said the king unto her, What will you, Queen Esther, and what is your request? It shall be given you to the half of the kingdom. And Esther answered, If it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, Cause Haman to make haste, and he may do as Esther has said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, What is your petition? And it shall be granted you. And what is your request? Even to the half of the kingdom it shall be performed. Then Esther answered and said, My petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king has said. Then went Haman forth that day, joyful with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself, and when he came home, he sent and called for his friends and Zeresh, his woman. And Haman told them of the glory of his riches and the multitude of his children, and all the things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the princes and servants of the king. Haman said, Moreover, yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared but myself. And tomorrow am I invited unto her also with the king. Yet all this avails me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Hebrew sitting at the king's gate. Then Zeresh his woman and all his friends said unto him, Let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go in merrily with the king unto the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. And that is where we are going to pause. Right? And so we know how his plan is going to end, but we'll find that out tomorrow, just in case you haven't. But if you have the Apocrypha, you can pull it up online. The additions to Esther and the Apocrypha, you can go ahead and read ahead if you're anxious to to find out about what's about to happen. All right, y'all. So we paused yesterday on the section, How Do Gentiles Begin? On page 144 of Fossilized Customs. Excuse me. So we will pick that back up. Okay, y'all. What time we got? 30 minutes. Okay, we should be able to read a good bit. I always say that then I start telling some kind of story. Okay. How do Gentiles begin? Acts 15. At the Jerusalem Council, the issue of fleshly circumcision, the sign of the land covenant, was debated and called a yoke that neither we nor our fathers have been able to bear. Peter told them how he learned that no man is unclean, and in parentheses it has 3 sheets in Acts chapter 10. He saw unclean animals alluded to men, not food, as he had explained in Acts 11. When Gentiles heard the message, Peter said their hearts were purified by belief, and they received the gift of the Spirit and were immersed, or, and in parentheses it has spiritual circumcision. Then James, Yaakov is James in the Hebrew language, right? Then James decided the beginning steps for Gentiles. Where's this coming? Okay, so Acts 15, 19 through 21 says, It is my judgment, therefore, that we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to YAHUAH, in parentheses it puts no fleshly circumcision. Instead, we should write to them telling them to 1. Abstain from food polluted by idols, 2. From sexual immorality, and 3. From the meat of strangled animals, and 4. From blood. For Moses the Torah, has been preached in every city from the earliest times and is read in the synagogues on every Sabbath. Like I said, that was Acts 15, 19 through 21. Because few could read and write, being illiterate, it has it in parentheses, being illiterate, and because scrolls were not widely available, the converts needed to attend the readings of the Torah, prophets, and writings at the synagogues, or synagogues is another word for a house of study. They had to attend these places in order to learn more. The Nazarene remained a part of a wider group of Yahudim, and even many synagogue rulers were Nazarene. The main disruption of this oneness was called by the Romans, and in parentheses it has a war conducted by Satan, when they destroyed the temple in 70 CE and again crushed the Yahudim 60 years later. Satan managed to kill millions of us, dispersed us into the surrounding regions, because Yahushua warned us beforehand that when we saw armies surrounding the city to flee to the mountains, the Nazarene were shunned because they did not stay and fight. Without the temple and the ceremonial sacrificial system, rabbinical Yahudism developed among the dispersed Yahudim, or the Hebrews. And I want to say, and I made me a note, I kind of read ahead a little bit, right? So right here, okay. So keep in mind who wrote the New Testament and how they wrote it. Remember, if you go to my YouTube page under the playlist tab, I have in there 2 different playlists. One I did like a 40-second, well not 40-second, maybe like I think it's almost like a 2-minute video. It's like 1 minute and 40 seconds. Where I give a quick overview of the book, the true authorship of the New Testament. It gives references and stuff in there, right? So if we read through that and we know and we identify who wrote the New Testament and how they borrowed stuff from the Old Testament and added things in the New Testament, we'll know if we have read through at least what's available to us now. And if we read the book of Maccabees, and I wrote myself a note right here to read Maccabees chapter 1, right? So we'll see, we can kind of pinpoint some of these things. A lot of these things that some people are waiting for to happen have already happened. And I know I tell y'all go read Maccabees all the time, and I said we want to read it this time, but because it's 4 books, I pushed it to the end of when we get done reading everything. But I do want to read Maccabees chapter 1 for y'all today, so y'all can see exactly what I'm talking about, because I'm not sure if you actually went and read it, right? Okay, so right here, when it says he brought out stuff in the New Testament says, because Yahushua warned us beforehand that when we saw armies surrounding the city, to flee to the mountains. The Nazarene were shunned because they did not stand fight. Okay, so this they borrowed from Daniel, and they borrowed from a few other places, but it's given in detail. It originates back with the original dream that Daniel had about what will happen. Now, when that is being taught in the church, like this is it's the whole portion about the desolation of abomination. When you see the abomination that causes desolation, run, right? Flee to the mountains. So the way that that's taught in church, at least all the churches I've been in growing up, they say that the abomination that causes desolation, or the thing that's going to cause people to run and get out of here, is what's going to be done in the temple. They said the Antichrist is going to come. It's going to be peace 3.5 years. And at the end of the 3.5 years, at the temple that they rebuilding now, he's going to slaughter a pig on the altar. And that's going to be an abomination. And their eyes are going to be open. They're going to know, oh my gosh, this is not the Christ. This is the Antichrist. So we got to get out of here. So that's what is being taught, at least from all the churches that I've been in, right? And so that was my understanding of the abomination of desolation, right? So being a good Christian, I was constantly watching the news every time they was talking about peace treaties and stuff, because I'm watching for the abomination that causes desolation, right? So all these years while being a Christian, or while I was a Christian, I don't name myself by that title anymore, right? Because I'm like, okay, so when they get in there and they get the temple built, that's why everybody be watching for like the red heifer and all this stuff. And clearly we can see them in the works of building the temple again. So I'm like, yeah, but see, the people aren't back. So now I'm looking at it like this is a bunch of hogwash. They putting on a show for the world, right? So that's why I'm not all over the place nowadays. When I see it, I'm literally at peace watching what's unfolding, while they're still they're like hanging on the last threads of pushing a lie that has overtaken the world for the last 2,000 years, right? So when I began to actually go through this stuff, and I actually came across the book of Maccabees, I just kind of started reading. I was like, wait a minute, hold on. This is exactly what Daniel was talking about. Wait, this happened to this king right here. I was like, oh, wait a minute. So when you get into the New Testament and you get into the let's call it the tribulation chapters, Matthew chapter 24 is the Great Tribulation chapter, and you have that same chapter that's worded a little bit different in Mark and Luke as well, right? And then you see more of it in Revelation. But they have pulled all of that, y'all, from Daniel. They tried to expound on in their words, and they mixed Daniel with Maccabees and some of the other things. But people that never read it can never pick it up. You will never pick it up, and you will not realize what has happened, because in Maccabees it almost tells you word for word how this particular portion of Daniel's dream had actually happened. So I want to read that, right? So let me pause right here, and we're gonna go to Maccabees chapter 1. Now I think Maccabees chapter 1 is pretty long. It's like, I want to say it's like 70 something verses. But I want to show y'all what I've been talking about all this time, just in case you have never gone back and read it like every time I told y'all to, right? So let's pause this right here. We get 38 minutes. That's right here. So let me pull up Maccabees chapter 1 so y'all can hear this. And so y'all remember what Daniel said, right? Here's what I should do. I should read you what Daniel said, then I'll read. That's what we'll do. Let's do that. Let me find Daniel. Everything is, the order is a little bit different. Okay, so Daniel, I believe it was chapter 9. Okay, he was doing his prayer and the vision. I'm sorry. Right here, the daily sacrifice is Daniel chapter 8. Okay, I'm gonna read Daniel chapter 8, y'all. Listen, and then we're gonna read Maccabees chapter 1. Okay, in the 3rd year, let me get my little use this. So I'm gonna be losing my place and skipping lines. And this is Daniel chapter 8. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. And I saw in the vision, and it came to pass, when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam, and I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of YAHUAH. Then I lifted up my eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. And I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southwards, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. But he did according to his will, and became great. And I was considering, behold, a he-goat, and as I was considering, behold, a he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and broke his 2 horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, for it came up for notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. And it waxed great, even unto the host of heaven, and cast down some of the host of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. Think about this in Revelation, how they pulled in Revelation. They saw the host of heaven and the stars and all that stuff. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down, and a host was given him against the day by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced, and it prospered. And remember also when Matthew chapter 24, when it talks about the desolation of abomination, it says, reader, beware. And I think after the desolation of abomination, the abomination that causes desolation, depending on what version you read, it'll say the desolation of abomination, or the abomination of desolation. It'll have in parentheses as, what was it? It referred you back to Daniel, right? It referred you back to Daniel. Okay, then I heard one Kodeshim, or one saint, or one who is set apart, or one of the holy ones speaking, and another set apart one said unto that certain set apart one which spoke, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation? This calls it the transgression of desolation, right? It is still the abomination of desolation. How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot? And he said unto me, unto 2,300 mornings and evenings, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. And it came to pass, when even I, Daniel, had seen at the vision, and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of YAHUAH, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand at the vision. So he came near where I stood. And when he came, I was afraid, and fell upon my face. And he said unto me, Understand, O son of Adam, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. Now as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep upon my face toward the ground, but he touched me and set me upright. And he said, Behold, I will make you know as what shall be in the last end of the indignation. For at the time appointed, the end shall be. The ram which you saw having 2 horns are the kings of Madi and Persia, or the Medes and the Persians. And the rough goat is the king of Yavan, and the great horn between his eyes is the first king. Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. And in the latter times of their kingdom, when transgressions are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. And his power shall be mighty, not by his own power, and he shall destroy wonderfully and prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and holy people. And through this policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall he destroy many. Right? Listen. So, and a lot of times we forget that when we're reading, or we let the church, somebody in the church teach you this wrong, and they start talking about the mark of the beast, so they can come be dragging you out your house, renounce Christ or die. That's not what it said. He said he is going to get them all by craft. He's going to get them. He said, listen, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall he destroy many. He's going to destroy you with peace, making you think it's all good. So y'all got to be very careful. Listen, he shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. And the vision of the evening and the morning which was told is true. Wherefore shut up the vision, for it shall be for many days. And I, Daniel, fainted and was sick certain days. After I rose up and did at the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. Okay. So now let's hop over to Maccabees. He gave him a progression of time of what would happen, right? And he said these are kingdoms that you saw. These horns, they're different kingdoms, and this is going to happen over a period of time. And the last kingdom that he talked about that's going to destroy many by craft is the current kingdom that we're already in. So all this stuff that happened before then, that he spoke before then, all of that has already happened. We're in this last kingdom and this is the one that's going to be until the end, right? The Roman rule, under like the Vatican, the U.S. And what we see today, they've changed the names, and it's okay. So let me just go. I'm gonna read it. Okay, Maccabees, the first book of Maccabees, chapter 1. Okay, and it has 64 verses. So listen. So you remember what he just hold on, there was another part in Daniel that is going to bring out in here. So hold on, let me go back to Daniel. Hold on. Sorry, y'all. It's labeled different, so I'll be losing my places sometimes. All right, okay. Also I'm not going to read it all. I probably should have, but in right, okay. So Daniel chapter 9, it talks about and the strength of the covenant multiplies for 1 week. In the middle of the week, the sacrifice and oblation cease. Upon the end, abominations destroyed until the consummation is determined and poured out over the desolation, right? So that's chapter 9. We should have read that, but it goes on and it gives you a little bit more that is going to happen up until the last kingdom that we're currently in now. And Maccabees chapter 1 tells you all of that. Okay. Ooh, so I should have read Daniel chapter 10. Look, I got it all highlighted in here. Let me read this. Okay. I'm not going to read all of it, but I'm going to hop over here. In Daniel chapter 10 so you can see. Because when I read it in Maccabees, you're going to see. Okay, so it's Daniel chapter 11. And if you read all of that, it shall tell you. Guys, you got to really read the whole chapter because it goes through everything. I'm going to just kind of skip through. Okay, and it talks about that he's in the first year of King Darius, and he had another vision. And so the angel is there telling him what's going to happen. And he's talking about the 3 kings of Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than the previous ones. And it says, by his strength through his riches he shall rise up and stare up against all in the realm of Yavan. And then it talks about another king. It says, and a mighty king shall stand up that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided toward the four winds of heaven, and not to his prosperity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled. For his kingdom shall be plucked up, even others beside those. And it goes on and it's telling you about the next king, right? And it gives you little details about certain kings and what's going to happen. And it says down here in verse 10, but his son shall be stirred up and shall assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through. Then he shall return and be stirred up even unto his fortress, right? So he's going to go, he's going to try and take them, but they're going to stand against them with all their forces, and it's going to cause him to flee for a certain period of time, right? And so if you read about it, when you read through all of the words here, and I'm trying to just kind of skip through a little bit for the sake of time so we can read this. Think about how they teach this to you in the church, whereas it's like always coming and they don't necessarily know who it's going to be, but they kind of throw names out there. It could be Russia, it could be China. Although they are involved, they're not really honing in there. It's like, how do you skip over the entire first chapter of Maccabees where it says like half of this stuff has already been done, and it pinpoints the kingdoms where you can go and look back, right? And so if you go further down, it says, then shall stand, hold on, let's see. Okay, so when he come back, after he get pushed back to his own land because of the certain kingdom that stands up against him with the forces and stuff, he go back to his land, and then he's going to come back, right? And so verse 16 says, but he that comes against him shall do according, and I'll just read this through to verse 45 so you can see. Then we'll go to Maccabees, right? But he that comes against him shall do according to his own will, and none shall stand before him, and he shall stand in the glorious land which by his hand shall be consumed. He shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him, and thus shall he do. And he shall give him the daughter of women, corrupting her, but she shall not stand on his side, neither be for him. After this shall he turn his face unto the isles, and shall take many, but a prince for his own behalf shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. Without his own reproach he shall cause it to turn upon him. Then he shall turn his face toward the fort of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall, and not be found. Then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes in the glory of the kingdom. This is a new king, right? But within a few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle. And in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. And with the arms of a flood they shall be overflown from before him, and shall be broken. Yea, also the prince of the covenant, and after the league made with him, shall he work deceitfully, for he shall come up and shall become strong with a small people. He shall enter peaceably even upon the fattest places of the province, and he shall do that which his fathers have not done. So you have to wait. We can't do that while I'm reading. Nor his fathers' fathers. He shall scatter them among. He shall scatter among them the prey and spoil and riches, yea, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time. And he shall stir up his power and his courage against Hamelech Negev with a great army, and Hamelech Negev shall be stirred up into battle with a very great mighty army, but he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him. Yea, they that feed on the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain. And both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper. For yet the end shall not be at the time appointed. For he shall return to his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant. And all this that I highlighted that I'm about to read now, All of this we are going to see in great detail. Then he shall return to his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant, and he shall do exploits and return to his own land. At the time appointed he shall return and come toward the Negev, but it shall not be as the former or as the latter, for the ships of Kittim shall come against him. Therefore shall he be grieved. Remember, the ships of Kittim or Chittim is also Rome, right? So remember that. For the ships of Kittim shall come against him, therefore he shall be grieved, and return and have indignation against the holy covenant. So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant, meaning those that turn from Yah alone, right? Therefore, they're literally forsaking the holy covenant, right? He's going to be able to bribe them, give them a little bit of change. You done found their purchase price, right? For the ships of Kittim shall come against him, therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the holy covenant. So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant, or their moles. He said that he got intelligence with those who forsook the covenant. So the ones on the inside over in Chittim, Rome, they're letting them know what's going on. And arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily lifting up, and they shall place the abomination of desolation, and such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt by flatteries. But the people that know their Elohim shall be strong and do exploits. And it's talking about us that don't turn away from Yah, right? Or who waking up and we're returning back to only him, right? And they that understand among the people shall instruct many, yet they shall fall by the sword and flame, by captivity and by spoil many days. Now when they shall fall, they shall be helped with a little help, but many shall cleave to them with flatteries, and some of them of understanding shall fall, to try them and to purge and to make them white, even to the time of the end, because it is yet because it is yet for a time appointed. And the king shall do according to his will, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every El, and shall speak marvelous things against the Elohim, against the El of Elohim, or the one who is in charge of all of these lower gods, right? And shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. For that is determined shall be done. Neither shall he regard the Elohai of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any Eloah, for he shall magnify himself above all. But in his estate shall he honor an Eloah of forces, and an Eloah or Elohim, whom his fathers knew not. He shall honor with gold and silver, and with precious stones and pleasant things. Thus shall he do in the most strongholds with the strange Eloah or strange gods, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory, and he shall cause them to rule over many, and shall divide the land for gain. And at that time of the end shall Hamelech Ha-Negev, the king of the south, shall push with him, and Hamelech Ha-Saphon, which is the king of the north, shall come over him like a whirlwind with chariots, and with horsemen, and with many ships, and he shall enter into the countries, and shall overflow and pass over. Stop. He shall also enter into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. He shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. But he shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt, and the Libyans and the Cushim shall be at his steps. But tidings out of the east and out of the south shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy, and utterly to make away many. I say, and utterly to make away many. And he shall plant the tabernacle of his palace between the seas of the glorious holy mountain, and he shall come to his end, and none shall help. Okay, so remember all that. Now let's hop over here to the first book of Maccabees, chapter 1. And it happened that after Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Kittim, had smitten Darius, the king of the Persians and the Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Yavan. He made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth, and went through the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, so much so that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him, meaning they're paying him taxes, right? Bella, chill. After these things he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died, and his servants bore rule, every one in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes. And you can go look up Antiochus in historical documents and prove some of this stuff that he did. You will see this is actually in historical documents. Go look up this king and you can find him. You can track back this stuff and you will see that what Daniel said was true and that this has happened. And this is when I realized this, I'm like, wait a minute. So if this has happened, exactly where are we at in the prophetical timeline? Because if they're telling us this stuff is coming and this has already come, I'm like, where are we truly at in the book, right? It started to blow my mind from there, and the rabbit hole got a little bit deeper. Look, and there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had a hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of Yavanim. In those days went there out of Yasharal wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and cut a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant. These is the ones that forsook the holy covenant, right? He said, look, let us go back, because ever since, and put them in these words, ever since we came out of Egypt, we had nothing but trouble. It's the same thing that happened, the same kind of murmuring and complaining type things that happened, because they were comfortable and although they were in bondage and they were being beat and stuff, they had grown used to it. It was a part of life, right? And so even while they was there, because you will say, go, you can pray to whoever you want to, and we'll see how they help you. So during all this time, as they fell off a track of worshiping YAHUAH alone and began to worship other gods and began to practice the same disgusting practices that the other nations were practicing where they were scattered, they grew accustomed to it. So they were used to doing the sacrifices and all these things in different people's name. And so they're saying, they said, look, ever since we stopped being in covenant with the heathen nations, nothing is really working out for us. So let us go back. Let us go. We want to go back and we want to do this. So the king allowed them to come and set up abominations in the land of Jerusalem, right? Look, it says, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves unto the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. Now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion of 2 realms. Wherefore he entered into Egypt, with the great multitude, and with chariots and elephants and horsemen, and a great navy. Yes, they went into war with not with just horses, but even with elephants, right? And where do they have elephants like in abundance? And that's another one of those markers that we see. Okay, where is there an abundance of elephants where they can ride them like they're horses? It definitely ain't over here, right? The only ones we see, the ones they imported and put in the zoo, right? So this give us another like area marker where all of this stuff was happening at. It's from my understanding, unless they exported all them animals from over here, they are found in abundance over there, right? Just something to think about. Wherefore he entered into Mitzrayim with a great multitude, with chariots and elephants and horsemen, and a great navy, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Mitzrayim. Remember, Mitzrayim is Egypt. But Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death. Thus they got the strong cities in the land of Mitzrayim, and he took the spoils thereof. And I highlighted this because every time I came across something, I highlighted it when it matched with what Daniel said. So this is another thing, right? They took the spoils. They had already divided some land with Alexander, right? You got the ones that forsook the Holy Covenant. They got the strong cities in the land of Mitzrayim and took the spoils thereof. And after Antiochus had smitten Mitzrayim, or Egypt, he returned again in the 143rd year, and went up against YAHUAH in Jerusalem with a great multitude, and entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar and the menorah of light and all the vessels thereof. I highlighted that. You can see if you go through and you read it there, they're stripping the temple of the things that were there, right? And the table of the showbread, and the pouring vessels, and the vials, and the gold, and the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crown, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. He took also the silver and the gold, and the precious vessels. He also took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre, and spoken very proudly. Therefore there was great mourning in YAHUAH, in every place where they were, so that the princes and elders mourned, the virgins and young men were made feeble, and the beauty of the women were changed. And so also, I'll hold a comment for later. Because we won't come across it again. So that the princes and elders mourned, the virgins and young men were made feeble, and the beauty of women was changed. Every bridegroom took up lamentation, and she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness. The land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof, and all the house of Yaakov, or Jacob, was covered with confusion. And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute unto the cities of YAHUAH. YAHUAH is also Judea. And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute unto the cities of Judah, or Jude, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude, and spoke peaceable words unto them all, but all was deceit. And I highlighted this. So remember, we talked about that. He's going to woo them over. He's going to deceive them by peace. He's going to peacefully take them over, right? Listen. And spoke peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of YAHUAH. And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire, and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. But the women and children took they captive, and possessed the cattle. Then built they the city of David with a great and strong wall, and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. And then they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. They stored it also with armor and victuals. When they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them up there, and so they became a sore snare. but it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary, and an evil adversary to YAHUAH. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary and defiled it, so much so that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them, whereupon the city was made a habitation of strangers, and became strange to those that were born in her, and her own children left her. So remember how, I'm going to read that in a second. So remember how we talked about when a place is made desolate, or YAHUAH said he's going to destroy a place. Remember how I was saying it doesn't necessarily always mean like poof, pow, like he blew up Sodom and Gomorrah and boom, you're desolate no more. But desolation can also happen when a people come in and they change everything about it. They change all the names of everything. They change the names of the streets. They move the people out and they bring a new people in. This is what happened, right? It said she was made desolate. How was she made desolate? It said her children, like Jerusalem's children, the people who were native to that land, when they came back, they said they didn't even recognize. They didn't recognize the people. They didn't recognize the land, right? You wouldn't be able, if you had never been there, you would not think that this was Jerusalem, right? Based on how they had defiled the land and how they changed everything, right? Listen, hold on. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary and defiled it, so much so that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them, whereupon the city was made a habitation of strangers, and became strange to those that were born in her, and her own children left her. Her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning. Her Shabbatot into reproach, and her honor into contempt. As had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed to do according to the commandment of the king. Sound like Constantine, right? He said, everybody leave all their laws. We're gonna have one. We're gonna have one, right? But not one so much in like we worship in one. They're mashing all of the things together. Listen, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of YAHUAH consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath. And the king had sent seraphim or scrolls by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbath and feast days, and pollute the sanctuary and the holy people. Remember, Daniel said he saw all of this happening. Set up altars and Asherah poles and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts. Like, this is what they were doing. Look, set up altars and Asherah poles and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end that they might forget the Torah and change all the ordinances. This is what Daniel saw. They would seek to change the times and the seasons. They gonna turn everything on its head, right? Daniel was sick. Listen, to the end, he said, do this, that he forget your laws and what you're doing to keep the Torah. That he went into Jerusalem telling them, forget what you do. We have a new religion. Do this. You don't have to be circumcised anymore. You can eat and sacrifice swine's flesh. And y'all can sacrifice anything, all manner of unclean beasts, and you can do it here. Remember, they were eating the sacrifices, right? To the end that they might forget Torah and change all the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. In the selfsame manner wrote he to his whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of YAHUAH or Jude to sacrifice, city by city. Then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit, everyone that forsook the Torah. Like everybody that said, okay, well, either this king gonna kill us or we gonna do this. But the ones who were smart, they said, we out of here. We're not gonna do this, because there was still people keeping to the laws of Yah. Like just like he said, it was not hard. Then many of the people were gathered unto him, to wit, everyone that forsook the Torah, and so they committed evils in the land, and drove Yasharal into secret places. When it says he drove Yasharal into secret places, those who were faithful and kept to YAHUAH alone, kept to Yahuwah's instructions alone, said they drove them into secret places, and drove Yasharal into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for help. Now the 15th day of the month of Kislev, in the 145th year, they set up. Look, pay attention. Y'all paying attention? Y'all ain't paying attention to nothing else. Pay attention to this. What they telling y'all is coming, the abomination of desolation. They're about to tell you exactly when this happened. Boom. Verse 54. Now the 15th day of the month Kislev, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and built idol altars throughout the cities of Jude on every side, and burned incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the Sepharim, or the scrolls of the Torah, which they found, they burnt them with fire. Ezekiel, oh Yah, your Torah is burnt, right? This is when all of this stuff happened. If you ain't highlighted it or underlined it, highlight it, underline it, write it down. Make a note to yourself so you can go back to it, right? Look, verse 54. Let me go ahead, because I want to highlight this part under here. I literally highlighted this whole thing. But this right here, I want to highlight in this. And burnt right here. Look. Right there. Okay. So we see Ezra also talked about this too, right? About Yahuwah's Torah being burnt. And then they rewrote it and added stuff that they wanted to add. Okay. And burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the scrolls of the Torah which they found, they burnt them with fire. And whosoever was found with any sefer of the covenant, or any scroll of the covenant, or if any committed to the Torah, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death. Right? We can still see remnants of that. For those of us, you have some people saying they're Torah only. You get into a lot of arguments with people with Torah only. You gotta trump all that. Don't say Torah only, because then they hit you with that water. Torah was screwed with, just like the New Testament was. Yep, that's why we say we worship YAHUAH alone, because we understand that, and it's YAHUAH who helps us. It helps us to pull out the truth from all the error that was added, right? And all that you see here, historical stuff. There is historical documents. Now there are some historical documents that have been made up, just like some of the stuff that's added in here, but you can easily disprove those. Like a lot of the stuff where they say they seen like JC up and walking around after this, that information stops at a certain point. Like they cannot find it. It starts and stops like in one place. There is literally no historical evidence, and even a lot of the great miracles that they said they saw, there is not one account of anybody who ever said, like you would think somewhere through history, somewhere all over the earth, but literally all they have is like what's been written in this book. That's where it starts and that's where it ends, right? But there is no like human person that we can track back that was alive at some point in time where we can place in history. They say, oh yeah, that happened during my time, and they would have passed that through the family line. I remember, or my grandfather, my great-great-grandmother told me about this, and that would have been passed down. That is not going to die out, because stories are passed down through generations, even if we never experience or see it. But there are some things, the big things that happen in the world that are passed down that are never forgotten. There is nobody that can pinpoint the true life of this guy who they named JC. Well, clearly in English, we know that the J, we ain't even gonna get into all that, but y'all know what I'm talking about, right? So they really don't know what they're worshiping. They have been fooled into worshiping something that never truly existed. It's a compilation. When you actually get into it and you read and you see how it was compiled, you're gonna want to throw up, because it's like right there in your face. How can you deny it? Like with proof, this proving what they've been telling you is true. Like real tangible things where you can prove this was happening here. There was nothing here. This, right? This is the age where everybody's eyes is being opened for the most part, and we can gather information literally in seconds to kind of prove stuff. Not saying everything on the internet you find is true, because you have to vet your sources, right? You have to prove the credibility of a lot of stuff you come across, and I go through a lot of stuff. And a lot of stuff I haven't even mentioned because some things aren't credible. And I found that out somewhere down the line as I'm doing my research. And when I find it out, okay, I'll put that to the side. Okay, now what we have left, let's go through here. And it takes time to do that. But once you begin to pull the string, other things begin to come to light where it grabs your attention. And that's why I'm like, y'all, calm down. We ain't even got back to the land yet, right? For some of these other things to happen, like, we have to go back to our own land, the land we are indigenous to, right? So, but listen. I'm going to go back up here to verse 54. This is the first book of Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 54. And we only got 10 more verses to read, y'all. Look, and it says, now the 15th day of the month of Kislev, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and built idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side, and burned incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the sephirim of and when they had rent in pieces, I see, Bella. And when they had rent in pieces the sephirim of the Torah, which they found, they burnt them with fire. And whosoever was found with any sefer or scroll of the covenant, or if any committed to the Torah, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death. Thus they did by their authority unto YAHUAH every month, to as many as were found in the cities. Now the 25th day of the month they did sacrifice Now the 25th day of the month they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which was upon the altar of YAHUAH, at which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised, and they hanged the infants about their necks, and rifled their houses, and slew them that had circumcised them. Howbeit many in YAHUAH were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing. Wherefore, rather than to die, that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they might not profane the holy covenant, so then they died. Like, people said, I will die before I put flesh and blood in my mouth. Yo. Now, the picture's getting a little more clear where they remove stuff and don't add stuff in here, right? And this is gonna kind of stop some of the arguments that people having today, arguing about meats. I'm just saying, there was some eating. There was something that said, I would rather die before I let flesh and blood pass through my lips, right? Look. Howbeit many in YAHUAH were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing. Wherefore the rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they might not profane the holy covenant. So then they died, and there was very great wrath upon YAHUAH. And that's just the first chapter, right? Yo, that's just the first chapter. That is just the first chapter of the first book of Maccabees. You got 3 more books to go, right? There are 4 books in the book of Maccabees. They broke it up, right? So I'm just saying, y'all should really go read it. I know we're going to get to it, but I'm just saying, you should really, really consider it. So we hopped over here as we were reading over here on Fossilized Customs, something that he brings out. That's why a lot of times some conversations I just don't engage in, because people are trying to argue a point that is clearly proven in other places, or scrolls that are not necessarily, they'll say not, what's the word they use? What do they say about the Apocrypha, right? It's a word they use. It's not it's not authorized. Oh, it's not the inspired word of Yah, right? So I'm just like, what? How? What are you even saying? But as you begin to read, you can clearly tell what belongs and what doesn't. So, y'all, I hope y'all enjoyed that. So we'll come back here. So I made myself a note right here so you can kind of see this stuff. Even in his understanding, I know he talks about the book of Maccabees, but I'm wondering, I'm like, how come you haven't made the connection with all of this stuff, right? So I don't know, maybe they're thinking it's going to happen again, just they think like there's a future abomination that causes desolation. How so? The land is already desolate. It's been made desolate, right? It happened back then. The land has been made desolate, and her children have been scattered from their home, right? So that clearly has happened. So the way people teach it's just wrong. It doesn't line up, because yes, they do.
That's like me ice cream.
I need to verify that with your father. I need to verify that with Dad. Give me a moment. So we'll pause this right here, y'all, and we'll pick this back up tomorrow, because we're already an hour and 25 minutes. I know we only read like a small little portion of the half of a page, but I had to read that for y'all. So as we go through, and I keep referring back to stuff, and I'll make the title of this video something with Abomination of Desolation today, you know. So if you're looking for it and you forget the chapter, you didn't write it down, you can kind of just come to my channel, put in Abomination, Desolation, something like that, and it should pop up for you. But make notes of it, y'all. Go through and read this stuff so you won't be sidetracked and have people scared of the bejeebies out of you for no good reason, telling you things is coming where things have already happened. Not saying some things are not going to come, because it is, but some things we clearly know, and we can kind of prove. We can pull up historical documents and show that this stuff has happened. Wait, Pootie, but there is proof. Without even doing that, we are proof itself that it has happened, right? Just once you identify the people of the land, who Jerusalem's children are, who Israel's children are, and you pinpoint who they are, and you pinpoint where they're at. If you read the scriptures, we know that the abomination that causes desolation will cause the children to be scattered, and whether it's through captivity or whatever, they run in hiding, but they're going to be captured, right? If you understand the story of what YAHUAH said, and you see where we are today, you clearly have to know that has already taken place. So that's why I said, guys, you got to read it enough to be able to have things click in your mind like, wait a minute, Bella, stop. We're about to go. It's for it to just click with you like, wait a minute. Oh, no, wait, that happened. You know how you researching something, or you maybe even just reading through a book, or you watching a movie, and different clues as the movie progresses, and they may show a little flashback or something while something is here. It's like, oh, yeah, that's right, because such and such. Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah, because she was hiding over there. Remember that part? All of it. It's like that, right? You have to understand the story. Reading the story is kind of giving you glimpses to what's already happened, and then the story and how it's going to play out. So that's why I tell you guys, just read it. If you don't do nothing else, just read it over and over and over again, because that's not going to happen. You're not going to start getting those moments of inspiration and things clicking like, oh, snap. You won't get those moments if you don't even know what's being said. You won't be able to identify. You won't be able to pinpoint people, even the things about them going up against the different nations, riding on all manner of beasts, even elephants, right? Where are elephants native to, right? So that's why I be getting so excited about this, y'all. So I be trying to help people pinpoint this, pay attention. Don't worry about some of these, or don't even waste your breath arguing with some people, and I don't care who they are, if they're not even realizing some of this stuff, I don't know, maybe their process of learning and awakening is a little bit different, right? And that's okay, because if that's the path YAHUAH has put them on to help them be able to put things together and to wake up, okay, right? Mine was simple, just by reading it over and over, and things began to pop out. So now I'm looking in history. I'm going to pull up historical documents and different things like that, right? But my advice to you is to read through it enough, and that's what we're doing, right? Because my commission, although I'm giving you all these goodies while we're reading, bringing stuff out, my commission is simply just to read it, right? And so while I'm reading it, what I've learned through the process of reading it, I share with you. But I'm keeping to originally what I know I'm supposed to do. Just read the scrolls, read the books of the prophets, read it so they can hear it, right? Some may stick around for a little bit, some may come, some may go. I understand that, but hopefully while you're here with me and when you decide to leave, because I know everybody's not going to be here always, hopefully you've developed a habit of reading on your own, right? Don't leave that up to somebody else, because that's how we're taken captive in our mind, right? And we're thrown off when we don't own the information ourselves. So if I don't teach you anything else, hopefully I've helped to teach you how to start a habit that will benefit you all your life and for the lives of your prosperity. And that is what reading the words of Yah. Yes. All right, y'all. So with that being said, let's go ahead and do this blessing. She can keep bugging me about this ice cream. I ain't verified that with Dad yet. Hold on. All right, y'all. So the blessing is found in Tootie. Sit down, girl.
Mom, this is Mommy. This is Daddy. And these is the kids dirty.
Okay.
They're all dirty.
They all dirty.
Yep.
All right, y'all. So the blessing is found. Wait a minute, Tootie.
That's a new house.
No, they're going to fix their house. Quick recap that I didn't do today, y'all. It is Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. It is June the 16th, 2021.
No, I press it.
Shush, no. Day is 182 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and prophets. And of the 3-year consecutive day count, day 851. Y'all, we read in the Apocrypha the additions to Esther 7, 8, and 9. We also read Daniel chapter 9, and we went back and we read some of. I was skipping through 10 and 11, but go back and read it in context. I'll put it all in the notes. And then we read Fossilized Customs, that little paragraph on page 144. All right, y'all. So the blessing is found in Numbers chapter 6, verses 22 through 27. Remember, the first 21 verses is the Nazarite vow.
Mom,
man or woman can take it. Okay, go ahead. Do the blessing.
No, that's taking longer.
And YAHUAH spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his sons, saying, On this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, May YAHUAH bless us and keep us. May YAHUAH make his face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us. May YAHUAH lift up his countenance upon us and give us peace. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. All right, beautiful people. Wait, girl. Sheesh. Let me just at least look for a question. Okay. All right, y'all, that's it. All right, no questions today. All right, I hope y'all enjoyed today. And I'll see y'all back here tomorrow,
Mom,
bright and early. Bright and early. No, I don't see Titus up here today, too. He didn't make a comment. She remembers that name. I don't know if y'all have kids and y'all, they watch like the YouTube videos, but there is a kid on YouTube whose name is Titus.
Mom,
so when she heard that, she thought it was that Titus, and that's not that Titus, Pootie. All right, y'all. See y'all in the morning. 7:15 a.m.